Hello everybody, I'm Anita Modestova, and today we're going live with Jon Hird to speak about him and what he does, about dyslexia, about grammar books, about a teacher's career path and all that stuff. So, and as my guest doesn't speak Russian, probably, we'll be speaking in English because most of you are English teachers anyway, so I hope it's all right for everybody. Hi guys, hello everybody. I can see my guest is already here. Okay. All right. Okay. Hey, hello guys. Oh. Hello.
Hi. Can you see and hear me, Anita?
Yes, I can see and hear you. But I hear myself twice.
Do you? Maybe you're hearing yourself through my...
Yeah, it's not supposed to go like this way.
Is there any setting that I can change to...
Let's experiment with clicking something. Okay. Right. Give me a second then. I'm still here. I forgot to take my earphones then, because it normally works without them, but...
Okay. Hi, Chris. I've just seen Christina.
Oh.
And Marita. Hi, Marita.
Okay, so some people... Oh, okay. Can you hear me okay now?
I can hear you fine.
Huh.
How many times can you hear yourself?
I'm not really sure.
Okay, it's say, I'm afraid to say, or I'm pleased to say. Yeah.
All right, just give me a second. I think you're doing all right without me.
I was actually waiting for you. I just said hello. I'm just saying hello to a couple of people that I know.
Right, no, it's in my earphones, but I still hear myself twice. Okay, if it's only my problem, it's not a problem. I can deal with it. Hey guys, okay. Let me know if you hear me or John or both of us. I mean, better both of us, all right? If not, we'll do something with it. If, and if everything's fine, we'll just start. So let us know. Are you in Oxford right now, John?
I'm in Oxford this very moment. I'm sitting at my office desk. I've just finished doing a bit of work, and it's a kind of chilly, brightish day. As you know, we like talking about the weather, so I thought I'd get it in there before you asked.
Right. Now it's winter here in St. Petersburg.
I've been hearing, yes.
Yeah, and you're coming to St. Petersburg very, very soon, so you're going to enjoy the winter.
I certainly hope so. Let's see how this new variant of the virus pans out over the next week or so. But yes, I certainly hope I will be. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I will be. I think this virus is probably the latest one's not going to be too bad. I hope. Yeah.
Just really, really hoping. Okay, so I'm not sure. I mean, no one's complaining about the sound. Okay, I can see my colleague Lisa. Please tell us if you can hear both of us all right, if the quality of the audio is okay, or we need to do something with it. If you hear John all right, if you hear me all right, and probably John is going to be speaking more, so we need to make sure we can hear him all right, and then we'll start. It's fine. Okay, basically that's what I was waiting for.
Good.
Then let's start then. Hello everybody who joined today. We're meeting obviously live. It's very obvious with Jon Hird. He's here right now. Last time we saw each other, maybe like I saw you giving a plenary talk at the BKC conference about 2 years ago.
I understand you were there. I don't think we actually met, did we?
No.
I've since understood that you were there. So yeah,
Yeah,
that was great.
yeah, but
I mean, it seems like a long time ago now, doesn't it? It was
a
yeah,
different lifetime actually, because everything was
exactly.
offline. It's so very,
Yeah.
very different. Um, um, and I'm an English teacher, but I wasn't always one. So I'm a psychologist, and I don't know, I always see that teachers who don't have like at least here in our post-Soviet, let's call it, context, teachers who are not initially trained as teachers usually have this imposter syndrome. It's like, am I ever
Okay.
gonna be able to call myself a real teacher? But I
Don't
learned
we
about
all have that? So don't we all have imposter syndrome at least some
with
of the time?
yeah, we do, but we have like something extra, to add, like
Okay.
an extra one. But
Imposter
you,
syndrome plus.
yeah, but you have a diploma in environmental biology, right? So you're not a real teacher either, or are you?
Well, that's one way of looking at it. And as I was just saying, exactly, yes. Not a diploma, I have a degree.
Uh-huh. Right.
Which I don't know whether the terminology, diplomas are slightly different, yes. I have a degree in environmental biology or ecology, yes, that's how I started out in life.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then I read an amazing story that one of your first lessons you have like to understand that you are now a teacher and prepare for that lesson like in about 10 minutes or something. So how did
Exactly,
you get
yes.
into teaching?
Should I recount that story now, or well,
Yeah, please.
if we just go back a little bit, as I said, my first degree was in ecology, and I worked in ecology for about 3 years. I worked on a nature reserve. So that's kind of my background. So yes, I'm not a real teacher as such. However, I got very much more interested in the education side of ecology, the education side of environment. My favorite things were taking groups round the nature reserve, taking kids round and adults, rather than looking down a microscope doing biology, as it were. So I took myself off to do a postgraduate certificate in education, which you may know as a PGCE. And that's the kind of basic qualification to become a state school all-round teacher. On my Easter holiday, I was still in bed, as you do on holiday. It was possibly about 9 o'clock, 9:30 in the morning, and there was a knock on the door. And I opened the door, and it was a friend. And he said, "Hey, John, do you want to earn some money in the Easter holidays teaching some Italian kids English?" I said, "Yeah, sure, when?" He looked at his watch and said, "In 10 minutes." And that was the knock on the door that kind of changed my life. That was kind of what set me off on the ELT path. I had no idea what he was doing. He assured me in the car on the way there that they had lessons for me. We played little games, 20 questions, sticking something on your forehead, the balloon debate, real sort of easy stuff. It went okay. And then after my PGCE, I decided I didn't really want to teach British kids in state school. So after my PGCE, I did the CELTA, or the RSA Cert TEFLA, as it was called in those days. So that's the link between ecology, biology, and where I am now.
Right. Do you ever miss ecology and biology?
I've always had a sort of background interest in it. Yeah, I mean, I love being outdoors. Whenever I'm outdoors, I always bore my friends silly by pointing out trees and birds and that kind of thing, talking a bit of ecology. I still visit the nature reserve where I worked very regularly. It's just outside Oxford. So do I miss working in it? I don't know. It's so long ago, but I certainly keep my hand in the sort of, one of my favorite things is sitting watching the birds in the garden. I put plenty of food out for them, and I'm very happy just watching the birds just feeding and fluttering around. Yeah, it's nice and therapeutic.
It is right. Thank you so much for sharing this. I mean, there are so many ways how we all get into teaching. There's usually no like regular path that fits everybody. So
studied a lot, obviously, yes, and you work, you have a lot of experience. So my straightforward question would be, how does one land a job at Oxford?
Well, like a lot of things in my career, if I can call it a career, it's been a sort of chance encounter, a stroke of luck, right place, right time, just like the knock on the door. I had been teaching for a while, and I just started writing, and grammar was kind of my thing. And again, connecting with my science background, I think there's a certain connection between science and grammar to a certain extent. There's a bit of analysis, there's a bit of logic to it. You know, it's equational, perhaps in a certain way. So I think that's why I kind of very quickly became quite interested in and quite enthusiastic about grammar and teaching grammar. There's a course at the university, the ELTSS, which Chris, who's here, or was here a few minutes ago, was on the last time we ran it, actually, in 2019. We haven't done it for 2 years. Anyway, I'm starting to digress here. And they needed a new tutor. On the course, there are different topics like materials writing, academic English, listening skills, speaking skills, teaching teenagers, etc. And there was always a grammar module, if you like, a grammar thread. And Scott Thornbury, who I'm sure all of you, if not most of you, are very aware of, had been the grammar tutor on this teacher training course. So this was just a two-week teacher training course run by Oxford University. I don't know exactly how, but I was asked if I would step into Scott Thornbury's shoes. Now, when they first asked me, I didn't realise I was stepping into Scott Thornbury's shoes, because my first reaction would have been, no way. It was only later I found out I'd kind of in effect replaced Scott. So, you know, thank goodness for that. Otherwise, it might have gone very differently. So I did the course. This was probably back in about 2008, 9. I can't quite remember. And after the first year that I did that, the guy who ran that course ran a course at Oxford University. And he said, John, we've got an opening for someone to do some grammar teaching on a couple of courses. Are you interested? And I said, great. Yeah. So a long answer to a simple question, but again, it was just right place, right time. It was never a master plan. It was just, you know, just kind of happened really from. So thank you, Scott. Scott dropping out meant I stepped in his shoes, which meant I then got a sort of in the university, if you like. And I've been there ever since. And that was about 2009, I think. Or yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's quite a story. Right. So you mentioned that, like, you were trained to be a scientist, right? So you I mean, your biological background, and my psychological training, I got it at the Russian Academy of Science, and for us, psychology is science. So I know it's a bit confusing, but it belongs into that field. And we used to do a lot of research. So basically, I'm a trained scientist, even more than a psychologist. And sometimes I get this feeling, and I wanted to check if you have this one, that in the ELT sphere, we don't really get that much, you know, solid research, and it's hardly possible, you know, because in teaching, there's usually, we do many things. We have teaching principles, teaching beliefs, and we know some things work, something don't, but we don't have like any research that says, do it this way, and this is the only like right way or something. Do you ever miss that feeling? Do you ever miss research and maybe having not enough research in our field? Or maybe there is some that I don't really know of.
Okay, I mean, two things. Before I answer your sort of main question, I think, you know, when you said there's no one telling us it should be done this way, I think because there isn't a this way.
Yes.
We're all teachers, and that's what makes us teachers. You know, we do it our own way. We know our students, we know what works for us, we know what we can get enthusiastic about, we know what works for our students and they can get enthusiastic about, etc. So I don't think there is a right way. I do think we can take little bits of advice, suggestions, books we read, research, and take it or not take it, make it our own, and so on and so on. Back to the question, do I miss research? I was never really a researcher. I mean, I did a standard bachelor first degree, 3-year degree. My research and thesis was actually on bird navigation. How birds, when birds migrate, how do they know where they're going? Which was very interesting. Very, very interesting.
I
I'm
want to ask
digressing.
how, but I guess it's for a different live.
I'll tell you over a drink in St. Pete's. Okay. Yeah.
Agreed.
If you really want to know. Yeah. I never really did much research. Then when I did my MA TESOL, my master's in TESOL, of course, I did some hardcore ELT research, which I will be speaking about in Moscow, actually. I'm going to do part of a session looking at that. So I don't really miss it because I never really did a lot. Yes. Just, 2 little snippets of proper research, if you like, as part of my studies. A little bit on my PGC, of course, but I was never I never did enough for it to miss it. I don't think.
Right. I see. Thank you for answering that. By the way, for those of you who are like maybe probably new to Instagram lives, there is this little heart button that, like, when you agree strongly or just want to support the speaker, you can press it, and then we'll see it on our screens. Yeah, sometimes it's like, and it gives you like a certain feel of the audience. When you're doing a live, you don't see other people, and some of you are too shy to write any comments. So this little heart button is something you can go for. Yeah, I can see some of the hearts popping up right now.
And Lady Bird here has just said she, I'm assuming it's a she, Lady Bird here, would like to know how birds migrate too. Well, if I see you in Russia in December, I'll happily tell you as well.
She's here.
Maybe
We'll be coming together.
how birds navigate. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe an extra bonus session. Dmitry Nikitin always does bonus sessions.
Yeah.
He's intending on running one on his own, but maybe we could cancel Dmitry Nikitin's session and you just run one more on birds. Okay, I can see. Okay, something froze for me. I'm just worried. Is it my internet? Can you hear me, guys? Okay. Can you see John?
I can see and hear you now, Anita. You froze and then you disappeared.
Yeah. So I'm again now. I don't know who's disappearing. You or me? We need a comment from the audience.
I can see and hear you fine. Can you see and hear me fine?
I can hear you better than see you for now, but hearing is important right now. Okay, let's go with the next one.
That's probably no bad thing. No bad thing.
Yeah.
So you were just saying Dmitry often has a session. So maybe we can have a little sub-session, little extra session on the wonders of bird navigation. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that might sell. Super, thanks. So out of all the courses you took and like the education and maybe little seminars and all this stuff, we know that teachers we constantly study. Which one do you believe is the most important? Like if you had to just choose one to keep, which one?
Sorry, I missed the first bit. What are my alternatives?
Just to pick your favorite education out of all those seminars, longer, shorter courses you had. Which one do you think was the most useful or life-changing, or
the ones that I've been a participant on, you mean? Yeah. I think all of them. I think probably most, I don't know, I would suspect most people would say that probably everything we do is part of what we've become. Of course, my first degree opens doors, sets you off on a certain trajectory. My CELTA, that knock on the door that a few months later ended up with me doing my CELTA. I was very lucky enough to work at a school. I did my CELTA at a school called the Godmer House School of English. The director of studies was Pam Murphy. She is, or was, sadly she recently died, she was the wife of Ray Murphy. We all know Ray Murphy, of course, English Grammar and Use. And after my CELTA, she gave me a job straight away, immediately, in her school. Again, right place, right time. They clearly liked me. They needed somebody. So the CELTA clearly was a huge, and it was a great school to work in. I'd kind of jumped forward. I was hoping to go to a school like that much later. And I suddenly found myself in it immediately after my CELTA. So that, of course, had a big impact on me, was very good to me. The PGCE, which I'd done before, gave me a kind of more of a general education teaching background, exploring things outside ELT, the psychology of education, the history of education, etc. Again, I've been able to draw on that. Delta, of course, is a sign of commitment, if you like. You've got the Delta, you're in it for the long haul kind of thing. And again, my master's, I wouldn't be teaching at the university without that. It's pretty fundamental prerequisite. And that gave me a taste of kind of real academia, if you like, which teaching at the university I can draw on firsthand and so on. So the answer to my question, well, that was my answer. I don't think there is one particular course, you know. I think all they're the major ones, and then of course little talks I've been to at IATEFL conferences and various conferences where I've just picked up, you know, little snippets that again you feed into your repertoire. So yes, is that an okay answer?
Yeah, it is.
Everything, I think.
For everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't choose. I understand. Yeah, and what you mentioned is really important. That sometimes maybe not even the course is the outcome you get from the course. I mean, not the knowledge or skills. Is the people you meet, the jobs you get after, and all that stuff.
And the inspiration you get. You know, we all go up and down in our careers and so on. You know, you get a real boost and energized by some courses as well, which I think is just as you would, just to paraphrase what you just said, Anita, you know, which is just as important perhaps as the knowledge that you learn. Right,
it's true. Thank you for sharing. Now, like, over to you and what you do, because you specialize in several things. You have several favorite topics, right? So here in Russia, you'll be speaking mostly about grammar and dyslexia.
Okay. I think so, yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's what the website says. So we'll see, and birds, of course. So many people. So yeah, all right. I don't know if these. I understand that these are two of your favorite topics. Probably grammar because it's kind of like science in a way, and the dyslexia. Are these really your favorite topics? And if yes, why? And if not, which really is your favorite?
I think so. I mean, if you've sort of seen my bios, I mean, there's obviously bios going back over the years. You know, it says with a particular interest and experience in grammar, EAP, English for academic purposes. Of course, I'm very interested in that, and teaching English and dyslexia. So I'd say those are probably my three main areas. Over my time, I've been doing this a long time. You know, I've taught teenagers, adults. Even though I've been in Oxford University for 12 years, you know, the bulk of my teaching has been in private language school, general English to teenagers and young adults. But yeah, I would say grammar particularly. I just found it interesting. And as I said, it's probably the old scientist that used to be in me. It's probably what is the attraction with grammar. I think grammar is everything. I mean, I know there's the whole debate, grammar, vocabulary, etc. I mean, to me, grammar is everything. Your choice of vocabulary is grammar, to be honest, you know, etc., etc. But I'm going to talk about this again in Moscow a little bit. Yes, grammar, EAP, which again overlaps with grammar quite a lot. The module I teach at the I teach two modules at the university. One is simply called English Grammar, and one is sort of professional English, kind of professional / academic English, and of course dyslexia as well. So yeah, you're right. You've done your research well, Anita. They are my main interests. Yeah.
Oh, actually, I really went to your website yesterday, and you have interesting blog posts. Not too many. I read one about how teachers usually busy and they has no time to blog. You know.
Yeah. Well, as you've seen, I haven't. My website is in dire need of updating. I just don't have the time to do that. I keep saying as soon as I've got a bit of,
sorry.
As I say, as soon as I've got a bit of space in my life, I'll sort of update and refresh my website. But I haven't. Really
That's what I say to myself every year about my website. No, your website is.
Well, I was looking at yours, and yours is very fancy and very up to date and very smooth compared to mine.
Thank you. But I think the information which is in Russian and my main website about me is very outdated. Anyway, I'll ask you about dyslexia a little bit later, but first I'm going to ask you a bit about grammar again, because there is kind of a debate, and probably we all understand mean different things when we say grammar, right? And we'll be speaking about grammar here. I'm not asking you about that, but I'm going to ask you about grammar books because you have several. You have a separate grammar book, and you have some additional to the course book grammar. What do you call it? Extra supplementary book. I wanted to ask you, what do you think? I mean, is the strategy? So when you're writing a book, how do you think the teachers will be using, and maybe should be using, or can be using the grammar book if they're following just like a course book, like any course book of their choice? So where is the place of a separate grammar book in teaching?
That's a good question. And I don't know that I, of course, have a definitive answer to that. I think, different teachers, different students, different school policies use grammar books in a different way. One book I wrote, it's just for the Italian market. It's actually probably one of my main books. And that's a unique market in that all the kids, when they're 13, 14, they get their course book and they get their grammar book. And it's a kind of Murphy-esque facing page explanation practice. And they use it, they'll do the grammar in the course book, etc. And then they'll, for homework and sometimes in class, and I've observed teachers using my grammar book in class, to support and consolidate the grammar they're looking at the moment. So that's one way of using it. Others, it's probably just something like, I issue my students at the university with an EAP grammar book. And when we've had a class, I'll say, okay, unit 6 or section 7 or page 15, a bit of homework just to consolidate, etc. So I guess that I'm assuming that's kind of how teachers, people use grammar books. A whole range of ways. With my writing, I try to make it as engaging and as meaningful and as interesting as possible. I'm very anti these mechanical, meaningless, made-up sentences that syntactically may be correct, and syntactically, yes, they make you produce the second conditional or whatever, but there's no meaning attached to it. Every single thing I write will hopefully be a sort of realistic sentence, something that the learner will either want to produce or possibly hear, and something that they can get engaged with. Yeah, just getting back to my Italy grammar book, the first edition, I gave a workshop, and at the end of the workshop, a teacher came up to me and said, "John, I just want to tell you something." This was in Ancona in Italy. And she said, "I've been using your grammar book since the beginning of the year," which was about 2 months. And she said, and I said to my students the other day, "Now open your grammar books." And she said, one student said, "Which grammar book?" And I said, "That's the best thing I've ever heard. Yeah, that's the biggest compliment you could pay me." She said the student was so engaged in the content and the meaning that they hadn't seen it as a grammar book as such. And when she pointed out the words on the front, grammar, he went, "Oh, right, yeah." Again, I'm digressing a little bit, but I think I think if you can make grammar interesting and meaningful, interesting topics, interesting language, interesting interaction with the language, there's a place for it in the classroom, and it will hopefully be more motivating when the learner uses it at home as well.
It's true.
Back to your question, how do teachers use it? Well, maybe the teachers here can tell us how they use it. Yeah, I guess we all use it in our own way.
Yeah. I was just curious. Like, as an author, maybe you have this view of what people will be doing with it. But I think no, I can't say that you're digressing. I think you're all to the point.
So the briefs I get, you may have seen if you've been looking at some of my social media. What I've found myself recently, I've done a lot of grammar reference, extra practice in the back of the course book. I've recently done that for Navigate, English File, Roadmap, blah, 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 a few others. And the brief there is that this is the back of the book, where the students will probably do that for homework, possibly to be checked in the class, possibly to be done in the classroom if there's a bit of time, but essentially is a review homework thing. So we often get a brief of how to write, but I still try and make it engaging and interesting and real, whatever. Yeah.
Thank you. That at some point, I think when I got really into the lexical approach, and I realized that I stopped using separate grammar books because they're usually very out of context, even when you give it for homework, it doesn't really fit. And what you mentioned now, that you do those sections for the back of the book, because this is something I do for extra grammar, that sounds, to me, it sounds something like I would be really happy with, there's, because it involves recycling the same vocabulary, probably following the same topic of the unit, right? So it really acts like an extension to the unit the teacher or student might use.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm a big fan in my writing. I mean, to be honest, I don't quite know exactly what the lexical approach is. So maybe this is something else. You can inform me. Yeah, I've got an idea, but I'm not so au fait with it. But again, when I'm writing my grammar, you've frozen, Anita. I don't know whether you can hear me. Are you back? Can you
I
hear me,
can hear
Anita?
you. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll carry on talking
John? Hello. I think
anyway.
it's
In writing my grammar
yeah.
exercises, I try to use sort of like, okay, I try to include in the writing useful common chunks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, let's say when we're doing something on the second conditional, instead of these usual typical nonsensical sentences, use some actual high frequency second conditional chunks. If I had time, I'd, for example, you know, and so on and so on and so on. Rather than if I won the lottery, I'd buy a Ferrari. I'm guilty of writing that sentence. I think every ELT author's written that sentence at some point. It's either a Ferrari or a big house, isn't it? Or travel around the world. You know,
It'd be
if I
nice
could,
to buy
if
a
I could,
Ferrari one day. So
yeah, you know, if I could, I'd love to. If I could, I'd, you know. So even when you're practicing the second conditional, you know, gear it around these useful high frequency chunks, the ones that the learner's going to hear and going to use. Whether that's what in the realm of the lexical approach, I've no idea, but that's basically how I would do a lot of my writing. You know, just use high frequency chunks of language that include that bit of grammar. It makes total sense to me.
I think that's it. It's exactly what I would how I would describe lexical approach. So,
there you go.
right.
Yeah.
That, by the way, guys, there is like you can see this question thingy on if you're watching our live. I mean, you are watching. If you have any questions, you can drop them into this question box, or I'm just gonna stick with the questions I have because I have more. So my second one, my next one, will be about publishing, because I think you published like with all the publishing houses there are, right?
Apart from CUP. I've never
of course,
been,
but you can't do that when you work at Oxford, right?
Well, yeah. Do you know what in Oxford we call Cambridge and vice versa?
Oh, I forgot.
I shouldn't say the word Cambridge. It's a bit like the Scottish play for Macbeth. Cambridge is the other place.
Ah, yes,
yeah.
Of course, yes.
So you know, where did you do it the weekend? No, I went to the other place.
To the other place,
and they have an even more damning terminology for Oxford, but we'll not go there. Of the major publishers, I haven't written for CUP. Most of my writing has been Macmillan and OUP.
Mm-hmm.
I've done some for National Geographic, some for Pearson, but mainly Macmillan and OUP. Yeah.
Right. Is it okay to ask? I mean, do you have a favorite publishing house to work with?
I don't. I have very fond associations and memories and connection with Macmillan, because they were where I started off writing. I don't know whether you're old enough to remember Inside Out course book series.
I know.
Back in the very early 2000s. That's how I started as part of the Inside Out team. So I've got very happy associations and memories of the people there that I worked with and the publisher in general. Oxford is nice because it ties in nicely with the university. You know, it's a kind of the university likes that I've written for OUP and vice versa. It's all down to the book that you're writing. Some are a lot more pleasurable than others. Some end up more like you imagine them. Others, by the time editors have got hold of it, etc., you know, they're not quite what you had in mind, either in general or in places. It's all down to the people that you work with, I think. And we're people, we're teachers, aren't we? So, you know, a great editor, if you're getting on well together, a great little team, it doesn't really matter what the publisher is. So I don't have a favourite publisher as such now.
Right. Yeah, for me, I think I've never published, but I like working with the books. I think I get to have like, at least I'm very loyal maybe to the different resources I use. So I start to learn more about this and that. So I mostly work with the National Geographic learning course books at the moment. Yeah. But I started my teaching career even pre-Seltzer, before Seltzer, with a Straightforward by Macmillan. And I remember...
Well, that was kind of an offshoot from Inside Out. because Philip Kerr was one of the author team. I worked with Philip on the early days of Inside Out, and then he kind of branched off and formed Straightforward. And if you want a little bit of insider history, or maybe it's not insider common knowledge, a lot of people, Inside Out was great. I think it was groundbreaking. I think Sue and Vaughan are absolutely fantastic. They're friends of mine. They're great teachers and they're great writers. A lot of people found Inside Out to be a little bit sophisticated. The teacher had to do quite a little bit of work, yes, because of its kind of almost groundbreaking methodology. And Straightforward, hence the name, was a kind of reaction to that. Macmillan thought, okay, Inside Out's doing great. It's becoming one of the best-selling course books in the world. However, a lot of teachers want something a bit more straightforward. Hence, Philip branched off from Inside Out and wrote Straightforward. Did you know that? Is that interesting? I don't know.
No,
that's kind of how these things work. Yeah, or how these things sometimes work.
But now it like makes sense in a way to me, because I mean, I didn't have any training, and just somebody told me like, this is the course book, go and teach. I had more than 10 minutes, probably 24 hours to get ready for my first one, and I realized like basically the teacher's book tells me everything. And that's why I have very fond memories of the course book, because basically I trained myself while teaching with just following that course book.
Well, I guess the book did its job. I mean, that's I think what it set out to be. You know, it was a good series.
It is. Right, thank you so much. Final question about your career, and then we're gonna move on to dyslexia and things you're gonna do in Russia. About the pandemics, I think we can't avoid that topic. Did it affect what you do in any way? I mean, in terms of because you do many things, right? So how these 2 years have been for you? Any changes? Any positive changes, maybe, in a way?
I'm trying to find some positives. I'll see if I can find a positive by the time I finish talking about it. I mean, like everybody, you know, it's been pretty devastating, hasn't it? You know, it's completely radically changed our professional lives, personal lives, whatever. Professionally, I spent basically 4 terms teaching online, sitting here with my students. I managed to we had a couple of lulls, you know, when things opened up a little bit. So I think I did a 3 weeks at some point twice in the department within an academic year and a half almost. The rest of it was online. It was okay. I'm not, as you've seen from my social media, I'm not particularly tech oriented. I'm perhaps old school. I think teaching online is just a lot of common sense. You know, okay, this is what I do. How can I make it work? How can I take advantage of the fact that the students are in little windows on the screen? You know, we've got this visual we can play around with. We've got breakout rooms. So I made it work, I think. I think it did work. But it was just, you know, application of common sense, you know, and with very little tech on my behalf, because I'm not very tech oriented. I did feel so sorry for my students, because at the beginning of last academic year, so October 2020, we were hoping it was all over. And they came to Oxford hoping to have dinner in the grand Harry Potter style dinner halls and the whole Oxford University life. And they spent the whole year in their little rooms, you know, bed with a sink and they were very, very, very positive. I'm very grateful for them, you know, to them for having such a positive attitude. But I do so feel sorry for them. You know, they missed out on the whole experience. So, yes, that's that. I think, like all of us, I'm sure that what I've just said chimes true with a lot of people. I suspect, you know, we've had to adapt. It hasn't been great. There are people who like the online thing. I like jumping on my bike, cycling through the Oxford University colleges, getting a bit of exercise, having a chat with the receptionist, bumping into colleagues. That to me is an important part of my life and my working life. You don't get that online. I kind of missed that a lot. In terms of writing, there was a few projects that have been put on hold. You know, the publisher didn't really know what to do. Are physical books, you know, going to be less popular, etc., etc.? So the whole publishing industry kind of just trod water. Trod, is that the past tense of tread? Trod. You know. Yeah. Trod water. I'm going to say trod. Yeah, I think it is. Trod water for 18 months, and then just starting to come out of it, but I still think there's reservations. So, I lost quite a bit of work in that side of my job as well. So, like all of us, not great, but positive attitude, it is what it is. We've got to make the most of it. I missed a lot of travel, as you may have seen, again, from my social media. I generally travel 6, 7, 8 times a year, conferences. I've managed a couple in the little windows in the last 2 years. So, yeah. Positives? Yeah, good question. I don't know.
Any people you met online? I don't know.
Well, I think the people that I've been communicating with, thank goodness for social media, thank goodness for Facebook, Instagram, etc., and WhatsApp, had we not had this, just think what would have happened in terms of teaching and socializing. So yeah, I've done a fair bit of online socializing, but I think it's been with essentially people that I, on the whole, that already knew. A few new friends have come along, which is great. Yeah. So that's one positive. I've met a few new people online that possibly I wouldn't have. Yeah. And how about you?
Right.
Can I ask you, Anita, how's it been for you in a word?
It's hard to say because about 2.5 years ago I started my online school, so it was before the pandemic, and then it's hard to compare because it was meant to be online from the very start, because I worked with the teachers in Russia. Not in Russia, but we're trying to be more international, but Russian speaking teachers mostly, and non-Russian speaking teachers as well. And we did have 2 offline groups in Moscow. And we lost those because basically you study offline not only because you want to study, but also because you want to socialize and have that cup of tea together, and
exactly.
Getting there, right? Yeah, but still for me, I like online because it connects me with so many people. But I also realized that I do miss traveling. That's why I'm in St. Petersburg right now, because I'm actually based in Moscow. But now, whilst there is still possibility, you can do that. You're gonna do that. But in a way, I think in a way maybe here, I know I manage also a community for freelance teachers, and I know from many teachers who decided to go online 100%, who stopped renting offices because rent is really expensive and all that stuff. So I could see if we could say positive things even for teachers or students who believed that, oh no, I'm not going to do online is bad, it's not something I want, and then they had to try it, they were forced to try it, and that they realized then that it makes their life easier. So
sure,
there were many cases of those here.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it can. For many people, it has made their lives much easier and more streamlined. Sure. Yeah. Good. So you set up your school before the pandemic. Handy.
Yes, it was because I was going to start an offline school in Moscow, but it turned out that I started a school for teachers in online, and I'm very lucky because I know people who did start an offline school, and it's not that positive a story as mine.
Bad timing, unfortunate timing, let's say.
Yeah. A couple of, I'm keeping you a bit longer than I promised.
No problem. It's Friday. I've got a few things to do. I'm not in a rush. No, it's not Friday. It's Thursday.
It's Thursday. Yes.
I'm still not in a rush anyway.
Yeah, and I think with online, the thing I lost with online is this feeling of day of the week, because they are basically
exactly Blur's Day, as we call it.
It's true. I've never heard that one before. It's funny. Or sad. I'm not sure which one is it. It's both funny and sad. Right to dyslexia. Again, as I manage several communities for teachers, I think I started seeing the word dyslexia pop up maybe about 4 years ago. Oops. Okay, that's okay. Are you back? Am I back? Are we back? Okay, guys, can you hear me? Can I hear John? Okay, I can see Yulashka said we're still safe and sound. Oh yeah, positive thing to consider. Somebody says I might be the only person who really enjoys the lack of real social life. Okay. Oh, John disappeared. It changes your lives completely. It's true. Thursday is a small Friday, is it? I think we say in Russian we say Wednesday is a small Friday. So, or yeah, or maybe I'm wrong. I sometimes am wrong about Russian. And okay, Laura, I can see. Yeah, you're asking about how Jon started his career. We had this story right at the beginning, so when we finish the live, you can rewatch it. Okay. Yeah, so we lost Jon for a second. Hey, the moment Lena Sarnowska entered the the live, we lost our speaker. All right. Okay. Okay, Jon is coming back. Yeah, good. All right. Okay. And he's probably back. Yeah.
Am I
Hello?
back?
Yes, you are.
I'm back. Good.
Good. So speaking of dyslexia, that I started seeing this like word come up into different chats and forums, and more teachers asking, where do I find some information? And I remember we were looking for people who actually knew anything about that, and they were really hard to find. But now I can see more of that. So my first question, maybe very briefly for everybody who's here, because we all teach different in different contexts, what dyslexia means. And probably why do we hear about it more now? Is it because it's getting worse, or is it just because it's like, I mean, finally people are learning about this?
Okay, I don't think it's getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just becoming more recognized, more accepted,
Mm-hmm.
and particularly in the ELT world. As you've said, online there are so many dyslexia sites. Some are great, some, to be honest, are not so great, as with everything out there in social media world and online world. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff these days. I think it's quite simply that the world, the ELT world, and countries such as Russia, where it wasn't such a big thing, are now starting to recognize it and realize it is a real thing. As you know, I'm giving a day of workshops about dyslexia in St. Petersburg in December. And in doing a bit of research for this, I came across some data that in 2003, a guy called, I think, Kordov, I can't quite remember his name, his figure was that he said something like 5 to 8% of Russian people are dyslexic. And that was his research from 2003. How the ELT world is becoming more aware of it, and they're producing material, and teachers are wanting to know more about it, and teachers are sort of realizing that it's a real thing, and lots of students that perhaps weren't identified as dyslexic as such are now being identified as such, and teachers realize they can make accommodations.
Right. And how does one recognize their student is dyslexic?
I'm not sure who can hear me.
I think you're breaking up a bit. Okay, I can see you right now at the moment. Something's wrong.
Can you hear me, Anita? I heard a little
your signal.
I heard a little snippet of you then.
Yeah, same here. You're breaking up a bit, and I'm afraid it's your connection. Maybe could you check if you're on Wi-Fi? Or
I can hear you now. I can see you and hear you.
Yeah, same here. So how does one
so I was talking about dyslexia. I was answering your question. I'm not sure how much of it you could hear.
I think the internet is working only when we're smiling and being quiet. So maybe Instagram doesn't want us speaking.
I can hear you, but
I asked about dyslexic.
Okay, try again.
I can hear you. So if you could tell us, like, I teach adults.
Again, I missed your question, Anita. Sorry. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
So I teach adults, so I don't know much about dyslexia, but maybe I should learn more about it, because for now I feel we connect dyslexia and like basically with teaching kids, but maybe it's
Okay.
important for adults. Yeah.
It absolutely is. I mean, dyslexia is a complex thing. It's different for each individual. You never get rid of dyslexia. You have dyslexia for life. So it's not just a children's thing. It maybe manifests itself more exaggeratedly, obviously, debilitatingly with children. And what tends to happen is as a child grows older, they make accommodations themselves. They make sort of coping strategies. Their literacy skills, their reading, writing and spelling does improve. So by the time they're an adult, they're coping much better and it's less noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
However, they are still dyslexic and they will still have issues as adults. But slightly different from when they're a child, when, you know, as I said, I think a key thing is that an adult will develop strategies and an adult's literacy will develop. You know, as a child, their literacy skills are way behind. And then over time, they kind of start to catch up a little bit. They'll never be equal.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll have relapses and they'll have certain quirks and things, but their literacy will catch up, almost. So it's still I think that's an important thing to be aware of. It's there with adults, but it manifests itself maybe slightly differently.
Right. And how does it manifest mainly in children? So how does a teacher understand that, I mean, basically they need more knowledge on dyslexia?
Well, it's different for each person,
mm-hmm.
But on the whole, I'll try not to go into too much detail here, and I'll save this for St. Petersburg. For most dyslexic people, it's an executive function issue. Now, you being a psychologist, you'll be aware of executive function. Some core fundamental mental processes that we have, such as working memory, such as focus, mm-hmm. such as effort. Effort, if I can paraphrase, as being sort of remembering to remember, if you like. Mm-hmm. Hindsight, foresight, you know, whenever we do something, we're always relating it to something that we've done and anticipating what might happen. These are some of our core executive functions. And with someone with dyslexia, the executive functions don't function so well. So their working memory doesn't work so well. Their ability to focus doesn't work so well. Now, if you imagine when you're learning to read and write, if your working memory, holding information in your head, plus your focus isn't so good, it's going to make it difficult to learn to read and write. Mm-hmm. But literacy is only the tip of the iceberg with dyslexic people. Yes. For some, mm-hmm. it's a bigger issue than for others, but it really is only one thing. The whole organizing your life, etc., because of working memory, because of focus, because of organizational skills, because of sequencing, because of time awareness, it manifests itself in daily life as well as just in literacy. We think of it as not being able to read and write very well. That's one smallish but very important aspect. And this is what I'll be elaborating on in St. Petersburg.
In St. Petersburg.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, and it makes me more curious. So out of 2 sessions you're doing in Russia, so I think we have grammaring it in Moscow for 2 days, right? 11 and 12 of December.
Correct.
And the 15th of December is dyslexia in St. Petersburg.
Correct.
So I understand I'll have to go to St. Petersburg again, like on the 15th, because I definitely want to make this one. But now after you've told us about how you write grammar, like things and like books or like the material for the back of the book, I'm more interested in what you do with grammar as well. And there will be a bit of dyslexia in the grammar sessions in Moscow as well, right?
There could be.
Yeah, so I see.
Yes, is that something we'd arrange? I can certainly do a little bit on sort of dyslexia and grammar and adapting materials and writing materials. I certainly can do that, yes.
Probably there. So could you tell us a little bit more why you're doing these particular sessions in Russia? And what are your expectations of the audience in Russia, maybe?
Okay, well, I mean, as you know, I've been invited by Dmitry. As you may know, I've been to Russia several times over the last 20 years and to various places to give workshops and talks. And I think Dimitri, knowing that grammar is a particular thing of mine, we said, let's make it a grammar session, which is maybe a nice contrast to a lot of the lexical stuff that a lot of people go to, although it kind of is the same thing at the end of the day. But
sounds like the same thing to me for now. Yeah.
We'll save that for then. So I think they just thought a grammar day, you know, and I know from my experience of teaching, you know, of going out to Russia and having a lot of Russian students over here as actual students or as teacher trainees. I know there is quite an interesting grammar in Russia, or there used to be. Maybe things are changing. So we just thought I'd do a sort of quite eclectic grammar day. So I'm doing sort of 6 distinct different sessions, each one. They'll overlap, they'll run into each other possibly, but, you know, 6 different aspects of grammar, just to sort of make it hopefully a nice cohesive grammary weekend. So Dimitri and I kind of decided that between us. Dyslexia, I think Dimitri is very aware, as I have become from talking to some of my Russian friends and colleagues, that, you know, dyslexia is starting to become more recognized, more of a concern in Russia. And I think he thought, knowing that I'm not going to use the word expert, knowing that I do workshops on it, I have a certain knowledge about it in an ELT context. I think he said, okay, let's go for it. You know, let's do some dyslexia because, you know, Russia really kind of needs it, and it's just starting to get in there, which is, as I said, from my understanding, you know, I would echo that. I've been getting a feeling that it's starting to go in there. So it's a chance to sort of, you know, really, you know, do something positive about dyslexia. So I think that was Dimitri's thinking, and I said, fantastic. I'm kind of on a mission to talk about dyslexia. And if I can just give a backstory, that my interest in it is that my son is quite severely dyslexic. So I don't have a particular sort of classic academic background in it. I've kind of learned on a practical level through various channels about it. And I have quite a passionate interest in it. And I really want people I want people to know what it is and what we can do about it. Because there are a lot of dyslexic people out there who are, you know, not getting the best deal, and we can kind of give them a slightly better deal. So that's kind of my passion, my interest. And when Dimitri said, let's do it, I said, fantastic, you know, let's go for it. Yeah.
Wow. One of the listeners, I'm not sure how to read if it's name or just the name of the account, is asking, do the dyslexic people exceed the others in any areas?
They can do. I mean, you often see dyslexia as a superpower. It isn't a superpower. It's great to put a lot of positivity onto dyslexia and people with dyslexia, and they have got some great strengths, but we mustn't be too over positive and too happy about it. You know, it's kind of not really a superpower. It can be very debilitating. However, dyslexic people can be bigger picture thinkers. They can be very creative. There's quite a high proportion of dyslexic people in graphic design, and that kind of makes sense because it's not so much literacy based. Yes, you know, it's visual, you can see the bigger picture, and so on and so on. So yes, it depends on individuals. I mean, I know lots of people with dyslexia. We have a school just outside Oxford just for dyslexic students. My son went there. I learned a lot from the experts at that school. And there's a whole range of kids with their strengths, their weaknesses, and so on. But yes, bigger picture thinkers, creative thinkers, a lot of famous. I mean, when I'm in St. Petersburg, I'm going to have a slide and say, okay, famous dyslexics. Who do we know? I'll not give the game away too much, but from all walks of life, big business, Hollywood actors, etc., etc. You know, there's a whole range of people who are dyslexic and have a lot of skills and strengths. Sure.
Right. I think about actors, I think Jennifer Aniston says that she's dyslexic, if I remember correctly. And
I'm not sure.
Not sure. And I think Judi Dench probably. There was a story that I think she needs like somebody who reads text for her to remember, like to go over the scripts with a friend or something.
Yes. Well, a lot of the Tom Cruise, for example, and a British actor called Stephen Graham. He's recently become quite famous. They record their script and they learn their parts. They learn their script by listening. Yeah. And I was reading something about Stephen Graham the other day, and he said that, you know, he learns it and he gets to a point where he throws it away. So he can't, that's his challenge. He gets to the point where he can throw it away or discard it. So he doesn't need to go back to it. And that's kind of how he forces himself to learn it. So Judi Dench and Jennifer Aniston, I'm not sure, to be honest. Yes. Yeah.
This was maybe, okay. Maybe, yeah, then maybe more, and then maybe, I think maybe adult people realizing that they have dyslexia, like very late into their lives, because, I mean, it just now when we speak about this, yeah.
It does happen. I mean, people are diagnosed in their 20s, 30s onwards, you know, they've never quite got there, and they've had a late in life diagnosis, you know, and it's been quite a relief for people.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think an hour is a good time to stop.
You're very welcome. I hope this is the first time I've done one of these, if I can call it one of these, alive. So
yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah. So I hope it was okay for you and for everybody.
Thank you for being so open and so honest and for sharing so many things. I think I'm gonna let you go and tell everybody a little bit about the offline live events, you know, you're gonna do this like in a couple of weeks. I'm very much hope to see you both in Moscow and St. Pete, I guess, because these are two different topics now. We'll have to go everywhere.
So. Yep. Good. So you want me to just say a little bit about that?
I think I'm gonna mention it myself, because I'm supposed to be I think your connection. So I'm just gonna pitch some of that. So if you want to, you know, there's like a little cross, so you can leave the live. Yeah. So I think
fine.
Guys,
I'll leave the live then. So bye everybody. Again, I hope that was interesting for you. A reasonable way to spend a sort of early Thursday evening. Thanks, Anita. It's been great to meet you. And
great
chat to you. I look forward to seeing you in person in Russia. Fingers crossed in a couple of weeks. So great. Okay, I'll leave you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Any questions? I mean, you know, I see some people have sort of followed my Instagram page. I also have a ELT Facebook page. Any questions, comments? Please just send them to me, and I'll get back to you. So great. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, John, so much. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, for everybody who's staying here, I'm going to switch to Russian because the events I'm speaking about are going to be in Russian anyway. В очередной раз благодарна Дмитрию Никитину, что меня приглашает делать лайвы с его спикерами. Джон Хёрд приезжает к нам 11-12 декабря в Москву с большой как бы грамматической темой. Grammaring It называется тренинг, соответственно, двухдневный и большой, и потом, получается, 11-12, 13-14 еще нет, и 15, видимо, это среда, будет тренинг по дислексии однодневный в Москве. Всю информацию я прикреплю к описанию этого лайва, скину ссылки в сторис, теперь это можно делать, и я буду, видимо, на обоих, так я пока подумала, вот как всегда делаешь лайв для Дмитрия Никитина со спикером, потом идешь на тренинг, потому что очень много всего интересного узнала сегодня от Джона, пока читала, тоже изучала его сайт. Надеюсь, вам тоже было полезно и интересно, вдохновляюще. Вы очень вдохновляющий спикер, поэтому я поеду за знаниями и за вдохновением. Надеюсь, что со многими из вас тоже увидимся. Если вы только сейчас смотрите этот лайв, запись, я надеюсь, сейчас останется, никуда не улетит, и можно будет посмотреть все, о чем мы говорили до этого. Спасибо вам большое, коллеги. До новых встреч. Пока.